All right, let's talk about Objective-C basics. This will really have nothing to do with Sprite Kit, so don't get your hopes up that you're going to see some fancy Sprite Kit code in here, or if this video shows up as part of a kind of a primer to any other course, well, just insert in course title and then in front of that think, don't get your hopes up that I'm going to learn anything about this. We are just going to go over some of the basics of Objective-C. I am, though, using a Sprite Kit starting template here, and if you've already forgotten where to start a new project from, you just go over here, New Project, and you can pick on the iOS application. There's the Sprite Kit game. All right, so let's just cancel that out. That's already what I've got open here. I've just saved this out as Objective-C basics, and I'm going to head down to my cs.myscene.m file, and we're going to get rid of all that little bit of Sprite Kit that was already in here. Let's not even worry about our touches began statement for right now. Really what we're just going to be doing is setting up a few basic variables, probably creating some methods, looking at if statements, and maybe we'll talk a little bit about why you have a header file and an implementation file, but we'll get to that at the end. Let's first talk about, well, where we're writing code right now. Most of your classes are going to have probably all are going to have an init statement or an initializer at some point, which basically just gets the ball rolling. And as what is note, like we'll look at the note here. It says set up your scene here. Okay, that could also just say just start typing your code inside of here. For a beginner, you're not going to mess around with your kind of exterior initializing tags for a long time. So just think of your initial starting ground is right here. You can go ahead and create some empty space inside there. So you open it up a little bit. And again, don't try to get rid of these or these two lines right here for right now. And let's talk about those basic variable types. And I'm going to narrow this down to just 4 of them. And the first one here will just be an int. And that stands for integer, so let's just write my number, and you could just put a semicolon right here and close off that line. Generally, with your with Objective-C, you're gonna put a semicolon at the end of every line, unless that line extends further out, through, beyond your workspace, where you have to carry it over to the next line. In that case, it's okay. You don't have to put a semicolon there, but at the end of what is a complete line, no matter how long that is, you're going to have that semicolon right there. If you left that off, you're going to get some sort of error, which is indicated right over here. And this is an easy one. It says expected, and then semicolon at the end of the declaration. So just put that in there. And the warning we're getting right here is unused variable my number. Well, that's because we just haven't used it other than setting it up. And, well, we might see that warning for a little while, so we're not going to use it too much. So anyway, we can leave this as is and just not worry about giving this variable a value, but we could also just put in here my number equals 10, and it now actually has a value to it. And actually, so we can get rid of that little warning, let's go ahead and put in here a log statement. What you can do is write NSlog. Those first 3 letters are capitalized, and then inside of this, the parentheses that are showing up or being suggested, you're going to put the @ symbol, and then you're going to put in here an opening exclamation point, sorry, an opening quote, a closing quote, right? A comma. We're going to put in here my number, and then the big thing that we got to complete inside of here is the percentage sign and then I. And in this case, I is going to stand for integer. And what's going on once we close this off with our semicolon is the percentage I is going to get replaced by my number. And we're going to get a message in the output window if we were to try to build this application that would just say the value of this. And if you want to get a little bit more specific, what you could do in front of the percentage I is write something like, I'm wondering what the value of this is. Okay, and maybe you can put ... or something like that, and then, but it is colon, and again, that's going to get replaced by my number. And even if you had this right up against the colon right there, it's not going to affect it. It's just going to just look for this part right here, just what's after the, that, and it's going to make that replacement. If you had 2 variables in here, for example, maybe you had something like this, all you would do is just start comma separating them. So we put that. Now, of course, you don't need to ever log out two of the same variables, but that's how that would look. So let's just build this really quick. I'm going to build it on my on the iPad simulator, and really I don't even need to see the iPad simulator because I know that nothing's going to show up. What I'm concerned with is what appears down in the window over here, which you can click right here, but it should come up automatically if I'm logging something. And again, simulator is over here, but it doesn't matter. It's just going to be a pitch black screen. All I care about is seeing the value of my number. And sure enough, it is 10. So that's a good sign. Now, let's go and put in a decimal number. As some of you might remember, integers are whole numbers. They can be negative or positive, but they can't be decimals. So if you're going to do a decimal number, you're going to write float. And let's just call this variable my decimal. Not even positive, decimal is spelled with an A. Is it? Yeah, it probably is. Okay, now in this case, let's write 0.5. And then it's going to give us that same warning here that says unused. Warnings are safe. They're just, I mean, you can compile with them. You can submit an app to Apple with warnings in there. But some of those warnings are more serious than others. Unused variables, well, you don't really, I mean, you might as well just get rid of this if it's unused. But kind of pay attention to them. I mean, for sure they're an indication that there's something that you should look into. All right, now for this, let's just go ahead and copy this line right here. I'm wondering what the value of this other var is. And now let's just go ahead and put that right here. So copy that in, my decimal. And we're going to get a warning down here which says that format specifies type int, but the argument has type float. That sounds fancy, but really all they're telling us is that this %i is not used for logging float values. And here we're going to just put f. Alright, so makes sense. I for integer, f for float. That won't always be the case, but here that works. And sure enough, I'm sure if I, yep, there it is. Published again. I'm wondering what the value of this other, and it's 0.5 in there. Puts in a lot of extra zeros, but that's their business, not ours. All right, next up, let's look at a Boolean variable. We're going to type bool in here, and let's just call this my switch. Because a lot of times you use a Boolean value to switch something on or off. Because a Boolean only has two possible values. It can either be no, as indicated by that big pink no right there in all caps. Don't try to do it in anything other than all caps. Or it's going to be yes. Okay? And you use Boolean variables all the time. Games, I think, are more logical than they are mathematical. Don't think that you need to know anything beyond your 6th grade math classes to program a game. A lot of it just comes down to, you know, are we going to do this? Yep. Are we going to do that? Nope. And Booleans are where those come in a lot of the time. So let's go and log this out as well. And we're going to say, I'm wondering what the bool value of this other var is. And let's put in here my switch, paste that in. All right, now a Boolean is actually just a 0 or a 1. The no boils down to just being 0, and the yes is equal to 1. So in this case, we don't put b here. We can repeat back our I, because again, a Boolean value is just a 0 or a 1. And let's publish this, and you'll see I'm wondering what the bool value of this other var is, and that is 1. Okay, because remember, this is set to yes right now. If I'd set that to no, we'd be seeing a 0 inside of there. Okay, and before I forget, let me do mention that I can set up a variable without a value and then assign it that value later. If you're going to do that, you don't need the bool that second time in front of there. So you're just basically saying, you're just declaring this variable of my switch is a bool type. You're giving it no value, although by default it does have a value of no. And then down here at some later date, you're saying my switch is equal to yes. And we're going to get the same thing in the output window with a setup like that. All right, and then our fourth of what I would call the most basic variables, is going to be our NSString, and here's where things get a little bit more complicated. This is an object type, and as indicated by turning purple right here, this is a, well, let's just keep calling it an object for right now. These, the int, the float, the bool, they are not actual objects. This NSString is going to need a pointer after we declare the class name, all right? And you can put that pointer either snugged up right against the class, or you can put it over here with your variable name, and that would look like, let me just close that line off. That would look like either this or this. I actually prefer to have it right up against the class name, and I'm sure people can debate endlessly about that. I'm just going to go ahead and give this a value. I'm going to put equals, and just like in our log statements here, you're going to put that @ symbol and then quotes, right? And then whatever your name is between there, all right? I can't think of any time recently in Objective-C I've done something where I had quotes and I didn't have that @ symbol in front of it. So let's just throw that out there. And anytime you're working with an object, you're going to have that pointer either up against the class or right over here. So let's go ahead and log this one out too. And now we'll just trim this up a bit and just say my name is, I'm going to put in my name. And this time it's going to be percentage, and guess what it's going to be? N? No, it's going to be that @ symbol right there. So it's I just kind of think of that as like an object, a fancy way of writing an O for object. All right, now let's see if everything is correct. We're just going to run this one more time, and sure enough, this line says that my name is Justin. Let's make everything look pretty, put all of our NS logs together, and there we go. And you know what, let me go ahead and add one more of what I would consider your most common things. It's a CGPoint. This is not an object, it is a data type or a data structure, and for this it's a fun one that actually holds two values. So let's call it my position, and then you're going to make this equal CGPoint make when you set it up like this, and let's just make it 30 for the X value and 100 for the Y value. And then we can come down here again. We're going to get that little message that says, hey, you're not using this guy. So copy this one, and I'm going to put in here the X value is, and actually let's do both of them here, and the Y value is, and let's do percentage F for float, my position, and after my position, we're going to write the property, because this is a structure that holds two properties. So it's going to be .x, the first one, and then my position. You can see that the Xcode fills this in for me here, or suggests to me that, hey, you got a variable called my something. My position.y, and yet again, let's go over here. And sure enough, 30 and 100, so those are in there. So let's call these the Furious 5 or the Fabulous 5, some of our most common variables. And just for the heck of it, let's go and show you guys. Well, let's stay inside the init statement to do this, and then we'll do it in the update statement here. First, if you wanted to add something to one of these variables, what you would write is my number, okay? And you could put in here my number equals my number plus, let's say 20, right? You could also get away with writing that as plus equals 20. That's okay. If you wanted to just add 1 to this, you could write plus plus. So there's a few ways of going about that. For beginners, a lot of times I'll just keep things as simple as possible, or at least as human readable as possible. So I'll just go the long way and write something like my number equals my number plus 1. You don't have to get too fancy if you don't want to. You could also add together two variables. So you might have my number plus my number 2. All right, and now this, of course, it's not seeing what my number 2 is because there's no my number 2 inside of here, but that would be okay if there was one. And of course, you can do all sorts of math on these things. You can say my number equals my number times 0.25, or you could do my number divided by 2, subtraction as well. So anything you can do mathematically, you can probably figure out a way to do it with your variables as well. And now let's look at kind of a common thing that you'll see in games, which is to update something at the frame rate, or kind of the tick, as sometimes can be called. So the frame rate's probably going to be about 60 frames per second, hopefully around there if you have a fast running game. So this statement down here, this update statement, is going to get called, well, it says right here, called before each frame is rendered. And so basically just each frame, right? And you can add up values very quickly that way. What you might want to do is take a variable like my number and say my number equals my number plus 1, okay? And think about that. After 1 second, that's going to be 60 amounts more, all right, than it was before, because if it runs about 60 times per second, that would increase that value mighty quick. Why are we getting the red red error here? It says unknown type name my number. Did you mean well, it's just confused right here because we haven't declared this variable throughout all the methods inside of this file. And you know, this is a method, this right here is a method. Essentially this my number is not visible outside of where we defined it. And we can fix that really quick by going and taking this part of it, going back over here to our header file, and I'm going to put an opening and closing bracket right here, and then I'm just going to paste in just this part of it. I'm not going to give it any sort of value here, all right? And remember how I mentioned before that we can do that. We can set up a variable without a value. So that's all we've done. And now when I come back over here, I want to get rid of that part because that's already been defined, that my number is an int. And then all my problems are solved because we've now declared my number throughout all the methods inside of this class. And I'll have no problem adding to this. And let's go ahead and log this out. What I'm going to do is just kind of condense this a little bit because it's we're going to see this quite fast. So I'm just going to put my number with a colon and then %i, my number again, and let's run this one more time, and we'll see it go up really fast. See how quickly that's going through there. It's not so fast that if perhaps a image was X or Y value was tied into this number, that you wouldn't see it. You know, you would actually see it kind of just travel across the screen like that. It wouldn't go boom, you know, too super quick. So that's something you do quite often with variables in games. And well, we could do that with our position variable. We could do something like let's see. Of course, we're gonna have to do that same trick we did before. Copy that off of there. Get rid of this part. Put in here CGPoint my position. Now that's visible down here inside of our update statement. I'm not sure why we are getting that. Okay, I'm just kind of curious what's... Oh, all right, magically went away. All right, okay. So my position, this will equal CGPoint make, and we can take one of our values from before. Okay, so we could write my position.x. So we're basically just saying, in this case, my position's x value is going to equal exactly what it was the last time, but my y position is going to equal +1. Okay, and then we can go ahead and run this log statement, paste that down here, and just so we don't have to worry about seeing two at once, tick by super quick, we'll just look at the one And sure enough, the x value is still staying at 30 this entire time, but the y value is going up incrementally and pretty fast. Okay, so that's a quick little introduction to setting up some basic variables using your update statement. One reason why you declare variables in the header file. So hopefully you've got that locked into your brain. And next we'll look at using some if and while statements, and I'm sure a few other things as well. So stay tuned. We got a little bit more of the Objective-C basics coming.